Here we
And
go.
it's still 9. Oh, there.
Good morning, everyone. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Fort Myers Beach Local Planning Agency. It is 9 a.m. on Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. At the moment, we have one member, Jim Bone, absent. Otherwise, everyone is present. Could you please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, may we all have patience and grace to do the best job possible for the town of Fort Myers Beach. Amen.
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 First item is an approval of the final agenda. Does anybody have any changes or additions?
So moved.
Thank you, Jim,
Second.
and thank you, John. Any objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is an approval of the minutes for February 11th, 2025. Any changes or additions? If not, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Don. Second by Doug. Any objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is public comment, and there is no public here.
Oh, wait a minute, she could be public.
No, Kara's not public. Kara is a presenter. Do you have public comment, Kara? So we'll move on to our public hearings, and we have two public hearings today, both of which are variance requests. And we'll start with go ahead, we'll start with Nancy.
Quasi-judicial in
Yes, they
nature.
certainly are.
Yes, you do have two variances before you, and just a reminder that these are quasi-judicial, and this requires that these public hearings, that they comply with procedural requirements that have been established in Florida law, as well as in your land development code. Your proceedings today are going to be less formal than proceedings before a circuit court, but they will be more formal than the rest of your discussions today. We have to follow basic standards of due process that require certain notices, the application of the correct standards in your code and in Florida law, and your decisions need to be based on competent, substantial evidence that's presented to you in written documents or through oral testimony. Your job is to evaluate the testimony and the information for each item, then draw a conclusion regarding whether the criteria in the Land Development Code or state law has been satisfied. So pure speculation or opinion is not considered competent, substantial evidence. However, in evaluating testimony, you can consider testimony by experts. They have been viewed as providing competent, substantial evidence in Florida courts, as well as testimony by neighbors and residents of the island who have fact-based information or personal knowledge of the situation. Fact-based information can take the form of minutes, surveys, engineering reports. So anyone in the public that is going to speak today, please keep my comments in mind. When you come forward, please state your name clearly for the record and whether or not you have been sworn in. You have two variances before you today, and your town code provides that a unanimous decision by eligible voting members of this body, the LPA, to approve a variance shall constitute final agency action, subject to a request by anyone for an additional hearing or review of the matter by the town council, if that request for an additional hearing is received by the town clerk within 10 days. So I just need to ask the town clerk, have the two variance items been properly noticed?
Yes, they have been.
I have a comment on that. Neither one of them had a posting at the site.
I don't believe that that is a requirement. I think that is a courtesy.
It is?
Sarah, if you want to comment?
Yes, that is considered a courtesy. I thought we were doing that now, so.
I thought we asked for it to be done.
Yes, so I will.
Because there's so many empty lots, you gotta figure out what you're talking about, you
Yeah,
know?
I agree. So I'll be speaking with staff again about that this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, at this time, I need to ask if anyone has any conflicts with the two variances that are on your agenda today. Please disclose that at this time so we can ascertain if we have a quorum that's present.
Does anybody have a conflict?
No.
None.
Okay, that was very quick. Any witnesses who will be providing testimony, this is a time to go ahead and, we ask that you be sworn in. So anyone, providing testimony, if the town clerk would please, swear them in.
Okay, do you solemnly swear and affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, all parties have been sworn.
Well, now we'll
Take
have
it away.
ex parte communications. Mr. Dunlop,
Do you want to
any?
read the title for the first one?
Sure, I'll read that before I ask. Nancy's trying to steer me, thank God. A resolution, this is VAR 202-50015 for 702 Estero Boulevard. It's a resolution of the Fort Myers Beach Local Planning Agency approving with conditions variance 202-515, requesting 4 variances from LDC Table 34-3 for the property located at 702 Estero Boulevard, generally referred to as strap number 24-4623 W300400.008E in Fort Myers Beach, to vary from required street setback, rear setbacks, and side setbacks, to build a new single-family structure in the RM zoning district, and providing for other clarifications as necessary, providing for conflicts of law, scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. Jim, any ex parte?
No.
How about you, Don?
No.
Doug?
No, ma'am.
Jane?
No.
John?
No.
And I have none. Okay, so we'll begin. Eli?
Are you guys able to hear me well?
Yep.
Okay. Good morning, Eli Lee, planner for the town of Fort Myers Beach. The property owner is requesting 4 variances for a proposed single-family residence in the RM zoning district. The applicant is requesting a variance of 16 feet from the required street setback, resulting in a street setback of 9 feet. The second variance is a variance of 12 feet 6 inches from the required rear setback, resulting in a rear setback of 7 feet 6 inches. The third variance is a variance of 2 feet 6 inches from the south side required setback, resulting in a side setback of 5 feet. And the final fourth variance is a variance of 1 inch from the north side required setback, resulting in a side setback of 7.43 feet to construct a new single-family home. The site is a cottage lot that is adjacent to Estero Boulevard and is accessible via driveway easement. The property owner representative is present at the meeting to discuss their project and the 4 variance requests. And after their presentation, I will come back to the podium to discuss the criteria for a variance and the list of conditions for the variance application.
Thank you, Eli.
I have one
Questions? Go ahead, Jane.
On those cottage lots, do you feel that every single one of them are gonna come in and ask for 4 side variances?
In my experience, with reviewing these cottage lots as they come in for building permits or ZVLs or something of that nature, what we see a lot is some of them are using the cottage code, but a lot of the times they are coming in for a variance for maybe additional square footage, another story, and things like that. So, and this project is one of those projects that's coming in.
Okay. Okay, other questions for Eli? John?
Just a clarification for me, so the cottage code allows rebuilding of the same footprint as was previously there, and if you go to a manufactured home, for example, that has a different footprint, that kicks it out of the cottage code?
Correct. With the cottage code, there's the reduced setbacks up to 5 feet, I believe. The same footprint as existed pre-storm, and you're capped at one level, and the lower level has to be open, not enclosed. So a lot of times we see property owners that come in, they want to enclose that lower level for privacy reasons, or they want to get additional square footage or additional height or something like that. So.
Thank you.
Anyone else with questions? Thank you, Eli.
Sure.
Kara?
Good morning, Kara Stewart, for the record, representing the contractor, Mark from Idle Construction, who is representing the owner. This lot is, as Eli mentioned, a cottage lot. It has been in the family for probably since 1981, it looks like, from the property appraiser. Was a small lot, did have a home on it that the house itself was approximately 756 square foot with some enclosed area below. which gave the total of 972 square foot of enclosed living area. That also then, we have a deck that gets included into that as well, which then brings us up to 1,182 square feet that was existing. We are proposing 1,350 square feet. The home itself is 1,080 of living area, very modest home, two-bedroom house. The applicant is looking to enclose the lower level partially. Let me just pull it up here, yeah. We'll be having an elevator and a storage area, and as mentioned, it is a pre-manufactured home, so we are limited a little bit on our design and whatnot in order to make the houses fit on these lots. We have no objection to staff's conditions that were recommended, and we look forward to a positive vote.
Thank you, Kara. Questions for Ms. Stewart? Jim?
No.
Don?
No.
Doug?
No, ma'am.
Jane?
No questions.
John?
No.
The only question I have is, Nancy, there are 4 variances here. Should we vote on each individual variance?
Yes, that is preferable.
Okay. Thank you, Kara. Eli, go ahead.
Good morning again, Eli Lee, planner for Town of Fort Myers Beach. Staff has determined that the proposed single-family structure does meet the LDC section 34-87C. That sets forth the required findings and conclusions for the approval of a variance. The criteria set forth by LDC section 34-87C requires that a request is accessional and de minimis, or not the result of the actions by the applicant. It is the minimum variance that will relieve the applicant of any unreasonable burden. If it is injurious to the neighborhood or detrimental to the public welfare, and finally, and if the conditions or circumstances on a specific piece of property are recurrent in nature that requires a code change. If approved by the LPA, staff suggests that the following conditions of approval, usually these are just boilerplate conditions, but I will go by them each one. The first one is approval of these variances does not give the applicant an undeniable right to permit approval. Development of the property must comply with all applicable requirements of the Fort Myers Beach Comprehensive Plan and LDC in effect at the time of permit approval, except as specifically modified herein. The second condition is property owner must ensure that they adhere to the neighborhood flooding ordinance for drainage and the 67% maximum impervious requirements. The third condition is the variances shall only apply to the single-family home as shown on the provided site plan. Demolition or substantial damage to the residential structure shall render the variances to be null and void. The fourth condition is property owner must ensure that no vehicles are parked in a 7.5-foot ingress and egress easement. The final condition is property owner must apply and obtain a demolition permit prior to applying for a building permit. Staff is here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Eli. Any follow-up questions for Eli? Okay, thank you very much. Discussion from anyone? If not, let's go one by one. May I
Public
have
comment?
public comment? Hello, public? Is there any comment? There is none. Public comment is closed. Just so everybody out there in wherever land, there is no one in the audience other than Ms. Stewart, who is the applicant's representative. Okay, so the first variance is for the street setback. It's a variance of 16 feet from the street setback. 9 feet for the construction. Is there a motion?
A motion to approve the 9-foot setback.
Second.
So there's a motion to approve it and second, finding that it's consistent
With the findings.
with findings and conclusions.
The comprehensive plan, and also if I can ask, supported by evidence that is in your record.
Right, findings and conclusions in our record.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Your vote, Jane?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
John? Anita? Yes? Okay, number 1 passes. Number 2 is a variance from the rear setback. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
I second.
And again,
Findings
finding,
and conclusions consistent with the comprehensive plan,
thank you.
evidenced by information in our packet.
There you go.
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion on the motion? Your vote, Jim?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Don? Anita? Yes. Motion 2 passes. The third is the 5-foot setback from the south property line for the side setback.
I make a motion to approve that based on consistency with the comprehensive plan and the evidence provided in our packet.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? Your vote, John?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Anita? Yes. Variance number 3 passes. Number 4, this is the setback from the other side setback, north side setback, yeah. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the north side setback based on consistency with the comprehensive plan, recommendations of staff, and information in our package.
Thank you, Doug.
Second.
Thank you, Don. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, your vote, Doug?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Anita? Aye. All the variances pass unanimously. Thank you, Kara. You know, when I do that roll call voting, I hear the Waltons in my head.
Yeah.
Good night, Jim Bob. And sometimes I just want to start giggling.
Night, Ma.
So, good night.
Got Jim Bob and John Boy.
I'm telling you what. Oh, Lord. Okay. This is for 154 Virginia Avenue. This is VAR 202-50018. This is a resolution of the Fort Myers Beach Local Planning Agency approving with conditions variance 202-50018, requesting a variance from LDC table 34-3 for the property located at 154 Virginia Avenue, generally referred to as strap number 194624W4 00090C.0040 in Fort Myers Beach, to vary 6.8 feet from required 20-foot rear setback to build a new single-family structure in the RC zoning district, and providing for other clarifications as necessary, providing for conflicts of law, scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. Is there any ex parte communication? Jim?
None.
Don?
No.
Doug?
None.
Jane?
No.
John?
No.
And I have none as well. Okay, Sarah.
Good morning, Sarah
Good
Probst
morning.
with Community Development. Mark Raudenbush with Idle Construction has applied for a variance on behalf of Stephen and Deborah Horgash, owners of 154 Virginia Avenue. The variance request is reduce the required rear setback found in Table 34-3 of the Land Development Code from 20 feet to 13.2 feet, a variance of 6.8 feet. The variance would allow the construction of a single-story, single-family residence on a conforming RC zone lot. Prior to the Hurricane Ian, the applicants lived on the property in a single-story 1950s house that was similar square footage to the proposed home. The previous home was also non-compliant for rear setbacks. No other variances are requested for the single-family home. And for clarification, it's a single-story over flood, so not single-story on grade.
Right.
I'm available for any questions you may have, and Kara Stewart is here on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions for Sarah?
So basically, they're wanting to build back what they had on the ground up in the same position, basically.
Essentially, yeah.
Sir, could you summarize staff recommended denial? Can you summarize that, why?
Yes, it's based on the criteria in the code. So the criteria in the code, hold on, let me pull it up so I get it right. So the first one is there are or there are not exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions. In this instance, this is a conforming lot. So the parcel itself does not have any extraordinary circumstances. And then the other one is that the conditions justifying the variance are or are not the result of actions of the applicant. And in this instance, they are choosing to rebuild as a pre-manufactured home. So it has a set size, and that's the size they're choosing. So if they were choosing a different style of home or doing a custom home, they could make it fit on the parcel. It's not that the parcel is too small to fit a home on. So although I don't think that this is a huge ask, I don't think it is necessarily problematic in the way some homes could be, because it's not terribly tall, you know, it's a single story and it's similar in size. It does not meet the criteria of the variance.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Sarah? Thank you
So
very-
if they, you know, if this is denied, then they would have to go to a custom home to get the same size square footage, because they'd have to have a second story and.
I don't know that they would. There are probably other designs. It's a design choice in this instance.
But if it's denied, it goes to the town council. And they decide.
But I would like to point out, you know, that it is pre-manufactured. This is something that we have, accepted as a reasonable ask in other instances. It just does not specifically meet the criteria.
What's the magnitude of the variance again?
It is, they're asking for a variance of 6.8 feet from the 20-foot.
And it's a regular sized lot, though.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
What's on, Sarah, what's on the, what would be the east side? What's adjacent to the setback, the 13.18-foot setback?
It's a residential home. So it's a
I agree.
residential home to the rear. And I would note that a lot of the homes on that street are pretty close to the rear property line. On Virginia Avenue, they appear to be mostly consistent with the rear setback requirement, not all. But on the street, and I can't think of the street's name,
Ohio?
Ohio, a lot of them appear to not be compliant with the rear setback.
Has the neighbor on the east side have any opinion on
We've
this?
received no complaints or concerns,
Okay.
and we did send out postcards.
So there were no objections from the
That-
neighbors?
that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, do you know, it seems that 55-foot versus, I think, a 48-foot build would be acceptable. Are there manufactured homes that are generally 48-foot deep? From my understanding, they seem to be even longer than 55 feet deep.
I could not speak to the design of the homes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Sarah? Thank you very much, Sarah. Kara?
Good morning again, Kara Stewart. The property, as staff is pointing out, does meet the requirement of the size of the lot. This particular application is being brought to you with some thought by the contractor and the owner. They were looking to really replace back very similar to what they had. Now, what they had, the previous home, the rear setback was approximately 8.5 feet. So we have improved that setback. This particular lot, when we talk about what someone can do, just to demonstrate the simplisticness of, or what the word is, of this application, this particular lot could have a home on it with 4,800 square feet of living space. We are proposing 1,700 square feet of living space. We are proposing one story. Our roof height, our mean roof height, will be approximately 14 feet. The code allows a 30-foot. So when we look at what we have here, yes, although we don't, the staff is saying we're not de minimis, I would like to say that I think we are de minimis in what the request is, in what this request could have been, and if this request was imploding the lot, bringing ourselves to the full extent of what we were entitled to do, and then asking for a variance, I would have to agree wholeheartedly that that does not comply. However, in this instance, we are not doing that. We are staying very consistent to what we had for our square footage, and we have limited the exposure to neighbors on all sides. We have an open deck. Our lot coverage would be normally 40%. I think we're running at about 28%. So all in all, although we're asking for the relief in the rear, that is to allow a deeper garage area on the one side of the home. The other side of the home will be open below flood. It is a design choice, but we felt it was a design choice that did give you the latitude to give us an approval.
Kara, can I ask you, there appears to be basically a 11.5 by 11.7 room that is what is protruding to the back. Does the rest of that building meet the 20-foot setback? On page, exhibit 6-2, page 94.
Yeah, that's the survey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at that too, but the actual footprint of the house looks like a rectangle.
Right.
So the
Yeah,
footprint on the
exactly.
the
Okay.
survey is the old, I think the
Yeah.
survey
Right.
must be the
Oh.
old
Ian
house.
survey is
Yeah.
94.
Okay, so
The survey is
we
probably
don't
showing
have a
the,
footprint.
Old house.
You
on-
do
You
on
do.
page 68.
60, yeah. One of them.
Okay.
But to your point, you're asking for a variance, but you're actually increasing the setback from what the previous home.
Correct. We
So
are
you're
improving.
improving that by
We are
5 feet
improving.
or something, is the way I do my
Correct.
math. Yeah, okay,
Correct.
Right.
I got it.
yeah, the survey kind of
If you
illustrates.
see that
it.
survey,
Yeah, on
right,
68.
you'll see that it jotted out at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's really the, yeah. Sort of looks like
Any other questions for Kara?
No.
Jane, are you satisfied?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Kara.
Thank you.
I'll ask for public comment. Seeing and hearing none, we'll close the public comment. Sarah, any further comments?
So, to sort of mirror, the way that Eli did his, would you like me to go through the criteria?
I think we're all very familiar
I
with
read
the
'em.
criteria.
Okay.
Yes.
And there are two conditions that we are recommending with the approval. That's that, approval of the variance would not give the applicant an undeniable right to the permit approval. Development or redevelopment of the property must comply with the applicable requirements of the Fort Myers Beach Comprehensive Plan and LDC in effect at the time of the permit approval, except as specifically modified herein. And that the variance shall only apply to the single-family home as shown on the provided site plan. Demolition or substantial damage to the residential structure shall render the variances to be null and void. Do you have any additional questions for me?
Any additional questions for Sarah? No, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, discussion on this variance? If no discussion,
I
a
move
motion.
approval of variance 20250018, 154 Virginia Avenue, based on the findings, information in our packets, professional representation, and consistent with the comp plan,
And with the condition.
with conditions described by staff. Thank you.
Second set of.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Jim, your vote?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And aye. So that variance carries unanimously. And Jim Bowen being absent. Okay? Thank you, Kara.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Kara.
Appreciate it. The next item on the agenda, in the administrative agenda, is a discussion only about the notices. Nancy?
First of all, I just wanted to say that generally, before you get ordinances to review, we would take them to town council. They had their M&P meeting rescheduled, so they are actually, their meeting is gonna follow your meeting. So for purposes of efficiency, we wanted to go ahead and bring this back to you. These two possible ordinances will go to M&P on Thursday for input from town council and direction to bring it back to you to formally consider the adoption of a ordinance. The genesis of these two ordinances was here at the LPA through discussions that you had. I am gonna defer to Sarah. I think Judith worked very closely on the notice ordinance that we have, and maybe we go ahead and read the title to that.
An ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, amending Land Development Code Section 34-236, notices to require applicants for rezonings, development agreements and developments of regional impact to provide mailed and posted public noticing prior to local planning agency and town council public hearings, providing for severability, codification, scrivener's errors, conflicts of law, and providing for an effective date.
So it basically will shift the burden of noticing to the applicant, developer. And I'm open to any comments that you have regarding the language that is in the code. If it needs clarification or this is the appropriate time.
So just a quick question for staff, enforcement and consequences?
In theory, so this is required, prior to the hearing, so if they did not provide evidence that they had done this, then they would not get a hearing.
And can you tell me why we're changing something that has been working for so long? And
We constantly hear that it's not working. We send out mailers and we are told all the time that people are not getting our mailers. It is our, as of now,
We've
it's
heard
our
it here
responsibility.
many
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
So it falls on us. It is a time-consuming activity. It takes our staff many, many hours to send these out. And then if the applicant changes the meeting or anything happens, we have to, send out new mailers. It's just been an onerous activity that we hear we're not doing correctly. So rather than us take on that responsibility, and many other communities are doing it this way, they require, I've worked in a lot of communities where they require you to do the mailers, provide evidence that it has been mailed, and have affidavits for the signage.
And the
So-
request is theirs.
They're the most benefited party
Yeah.
based upon the actions that are about to be taken, therefore the consequences and responsibility for compliance should start there. And I completely agree with
So
making
why-
them prove self-approval, that we're following what we said we would do.
Yeah, I see, I've been in many meetings where the public
Yeah.
says they didn't get a notice or something, which sort of assigns blame to the town. But like as my colleague said, it's really the applicant's the one that's trying to make something happen, so. I guess my question would be, what sort of proof would be required that they actually did this public notice?
So I don't know if it's specifically.
Affidavit, I think.
Okay, so is it affidavit of signage? Is it, I know in other communities, they require certified mail.
I thought it was an affidavit of compliance, that
Okay.
they've complied with your code, and identifying the criteria that needed to be satisfied, but
And
I'm
how will-
not seeing
how will
affidavit.
they know where the circle should go? That's my question.
At this time, they are getting that information, and we typically require that they submit that to us anyway. They get it from the Lee County Property Appraisers or Lee County GIS. There's actually a link in the application for it.
And so it's not as difficult as it,
Readily available, and
Yes.
it's as up to date as the individual homeowners want to keep it.
Yes, that is correct.
The only question I have, though, is it seems like it is transferring some of the burden
Right.
of doing this to the actual residents, and we are in a community which has part-time snowbirds that are not local. Makes it more difficult, I would suggest. Is there any revenue impact to this? Because I did read that there is a chargeback that the town provides for this service currently.
Yeah, currently we charge for the mailers, not a substantial amount. It's really only to cover the printing and the mailing of it. We don't make money on it. I think we probably lose money on it at this time because there's also a staff person who's
You're,
responsible.
you're
for
not
it.
charging an administrative fee on top of?
We're not charging enough to do that. no.
Is there adequate documentation to direct our residents on how to do this and the process by which they should follow?
Yes, and if they have questions, we can certainly advise them and send them email addresses. At this time, the process really is when we ask for an application, they're supposed to submit to us the list of mail. In the past, we required that they send us labels. Now we actually print out the postcards ourselves, so we're not requiring people to submit it. But people who are used to submitting in the town, go ahead and do it anyway, because it is actually listed in the application. It's pretty simple. You email whoever it is over at Lee County, tell them what you need. They email you a map,
Okay.
and it shows the circle and it has the listing of all the addresses.
And then, yeah, just putting back to the ownership on the applicant, so then the applicant, is there a place they can go outsource this, or do they have to physically print a letter that is conforming to whatever is required and physically mail that out.
There are businesses that do this.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked at engineering firms where we do it ourselves, and it is moderately time consuming, except the ones that the towns that I worked in required the certified mail, so it was more time consuming. But, as far as the actual business goes, I think most of the printing centers do it.
Yeah, I just think about other governmental notices, and like usually a public notice is, there's a public place to notice it. I just wish, we're in the little past the 90s. It would be cool if we could somehow get people to register or go look at something. If you could email it, right? It would be so much
sure.
easier, because it really puts just one more burden on the process, right? And it just seems like we've got so many steps for people to go through for the most basic of things,
I
right?
think the state law requires some component. I know they require, for rezonings, they require a public notice in a newspaper, and they say specifically what it has to be.
Yeah.
I think just for like variances and special exceptions, that's where it's sort of the lower.
In our business, I mean, in the utility business, there's no, there's a process, but it doesn't really put it on the applicant, but.
I expect that, in thinking ahead, like, if this was implemented, we're still gonna have people in the public meetings that say,
I didn't get it.
I didn't know about this till today or something.
Of course
That's
there
why I
are.
was trying to think,
And
if there was.
I don't think there's any even if you emailed them or did anything, there's
Well,
still gonna be people
I think
like
if you
that.
could get people in a town like this to register and say, here is the site where all public notices are are listed, and they're listed at this, and it's your responsibility, Anita, to go look and make sure there's nothing around you that's happening, right? Because as a property owner, I should be looking out for, I'm looking out for my interests, so I should take some step instead of just.
But we're still required to advertise, notice the
Right.
agenda, put the information
Right,
out, both through
right.
website and others, so there is,
I agree.
there is a
that's why
point to go do
I
that.
just think it's,
Have to be
it's a bit of
disciplined.
an antiquated process that
Yeah.
to mail
I
out
think it's,
public or notices.
it is antiquated, but
Yeah.
it might be necessary, because let's say I own property on Fort Myers Beach and I'm not here all the time or something, and something's going on, and, I don't know, it should be my job to go poke around on a site and see if anything's going on, yes or no. If something's going on, I should be notified
Well, like,
somehow.
think
you know.
about the boil water notices. I get a voicemail, text message. I mean, there are ways, right? If I,
Well,
as
that
a
would-
resident
yeah.
property owner, if I register with the town, there are ways to get a notice electronically. And so I'm just exploring. It seems
If
like
it's-
there should be an easier way than snail mailing it.
Yeah, if something's happening relevant to your property, you should get an automatic notice.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
we're
think
kinda saying the same
That
thing.
could be, yeah, I think that could be
I think my
some,
experience is that there is, I can't cite chapter and verse, but in order to use electronic communication in lieu of or substitute for other first class mailing, it requires an affirmative action. You have to agree that's now how you can communicate with me. So I've had to do it in other communities. It's very, very difficult to get
You have
people.
to do that on doctor's forms, on
To
and
go through that
everything,
process, right, you have to go
everything,
through a
yeah.
big permission thing, so it's not perfect either way. If you look at our red alerts, for example, you have to proactively sign yourself up to know whether or not there's something going on in the
right,
town.
right.
Otherwise, it's on
You're
you
not
for
gonna-
not being on that. So I find this to be similar, and maybe this will encourage or bias some folks to get more proactive about providing information or allowing us to communicate that way.
John brings up a good thing about, individual property owners, residents of the island, but how many have we had come before us that aren't represented by somebody? Almost everybody is represented by someone who this is their business. It'll be another bill, but
Right.
it'll be a task for them
Yeah.
to complete. So,
I agree, but I think that there's been a great deal of support for example, to follow owner-builder as a development for residents. And as somebody who has not been through these processes before, it's difficult to understand all of the
Sure,
steps.
it is.
So I think my recommendation, and the reason I asked Sarah the question is there good documentation to guide people? I don't disagree that the burden should be on the applicant as the person who is making the request. It's just how difficult will it be? It sounds like it's not a very difficult process.
I think the other attribute that we continue to benefit from and should emphasize and relish is that the culture of this community is there's always somebody here that you can come talk to, sit down, have a conversation with about how best to do this. We're not bureaucratic in that regard. There may be a lot of demand on the resource of the staff, but they're open, they're willing, they're available, and they're knowledgeable about helping people get to that point, back to your owner-builder situation. And should they pursue that conversation, they'll be benefited by it. And I think that's a good thing about Fort Myers Beach.
And I would note that there was a discussion about notification electronically. We are looking at a new permitting system at some point in the future, and it may be possible, if that's coordinated with GIS properly, that people within a certain distance can sign up to get alerts when somebody applies for any sort of permit.
Yeah, you would
I don't
Yeah.
know what it's gonna be capable of, but that may be an option in the future.
Yeah.
Good.
So if I could just add on to that, so remember too that if you give your email address to the town, it is a public record.
Right.
And there could be a public records request for email addresses for everyone living in a certain area. So, again, it's kind of, the individual would have to consent and agree.
Exactly.
And know that by doing it, they're doing that. The other thing I just wanted to point out, I think that Judith worked very hard on this ordinance, and she did a great job. In subsection B, it does talk about, with some new language that says, all notice requests shall utilize layman's language, i.e. apartment building rather than multifamily dwelling,
Oh, yeah.
and restaurant rather than business
Nice.
zoning.
Good for her.
Unfortunately, in other communities, sometimes they just put, the V89, whatever,
Yeah.
the number, and people don't really understand. But this is going one step further and actually giving you a description in, quote, layman's terms.
Water reclamation versus sewage plant.
Yeah.
It does make a difference, yeah.
Okay, any other discussion on this?
Nope.
So hopefully the council will see that this is simply shifting the burden to the applicant, and we agree that's where it lies.
So just to summarize your discussion, then you are in support of this type of ordinance should council so direct?
Yes.
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 Okay, the next item is the review of application fees and payment. We brought this up. This is a discussion of a draft ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, amending section 34-53 of chapter 34, article 2, division 1 of the Land Development Code regarding acceptance of payment of fees and charges for review of any application or issuance of a permit, including inspections, until all fees and charges due the town, including but not limited to expenditures for noticing, advertising additional professional services, outstanding utility bills, or code enforcement fines for liens have been paid, and the property is in compliance with all applicable town codes and ordinances, unless review of the application is needed for safety purposes or for compliance with town codes and ordinances, providing for severability, codification, scrivener's errors, conflicts of law, and providing an effective date.
So we are presenting this one to you again, based on your discussion that you had, with the caveat that I mentioned earlier, that we will be taking it to M&P to get input and direction from, the town council. I guess I wanted to walk away, today knowing that this is what you actually intended, when you asked us to consider and come up with something. It is quite broad. It encompasses, building permits as well as land development, applications that may be forthcoming, as far as what does it apply to. It also is quite broad as far as any type of monetary indebtedness to the town, whether it be outstanding utility fees, fines, noticing, professional service reimbursements. So that's how it was drafted, and we're just looking for your input
Yes,
to
let me
share.
put some comments on this, because I think I initially brought it up, and it's a bit of a camel now versus the horse I was trying to build. So let me go back to the baseline, my personal philosophy around it, and see if we can talk about paring it back a bit. my fundamental belief is that if somebody's coming and asking for a variance of some sort before us, for a piece of property, whether it's the organic property that we're talking about the fees or a new development, what they're asking for is that I need to do something different than I'm allowed to under the normal rights, property rights. And as a result of that, if you would agree to give me some flexibility and variances around that, I will agree to comply with those conditions of that approval and move forward with the development and everybody's happy. My issue was if there are current and existing properties where the applicant is not in compliance with what they already agreed to do through other variances, ordinance, or otherwise, coming and asking us to believe again on a different piece of property that they're going to do better this time seemed like an abuse of both our time, the respect for the process, and certainly the credibility of the applicant, because they have shown by their own behavior they're not in compliance with the rules and agreements that they have been agreed to prior to that. The additional component I put on it, so that it would have a degree of specificity and seriousness to it, is these would be magistrate sanctioned liens or fines. To me, that means they've had complete due process for misunderstandings, personal circumstances, situations and hurricanes, etc., and been heard by an arm's length third party to say, all that being said, Mr. and Mrs. Applicant, you owe the money, and until such a time you pay these fines, you're going to be out of compliance, and if it goes very long, we're going to put a lien on the property. That's a distinction with a difference for me, because it's gone through a very serious process. The rest of these fees and all that are normal in due course. I never intended on having it be that encompassing or that global. I think enforcement is impossible, and everybody has personal circumstances. So I'd like to start the conversation back to where I thought it began, which is, if you agreed and you didn't do it, and you've gone through due process, and a third party agrees you didn't do it, and you're under some sort of a magistrate sanctioned fee or lien, then clean that up before you come and ask for the next time you want something changed or outside our variances, because our evidence is proven we will go back down the same path again. I think we have to stop the madness.
What about if you've got somebody who has liens, has fines, has whatever, they're in the magistrate process and they come here before they go to the magistrate? Then they're lucky.
Or smart.
Or smart.
Smart,
Yeah.
right.
Or clever.
Yeah, and I know there's some discussion, we had it earlier with one of the individuals that we hear about separate properties, separate issues, separate requests. I'm trying to get at the basic core pattern of behavior. And I told that individual that I wouldn't hire a bank robber to work at my bank just because I wasn't the bank they robbed. So there's a pattern of behavior around that says there's something there I don't want to be around.
Yeah.
And that's the conversation I'm looking to have with you all.
That was one of the things that I thought was the specificity of it being tied to the specific property was a bit of a problem, because what I think we've been experiencing is previous other developments, et cetera, that are pre-existing conditions.
Sure.
As opposed to
Sure.
the property under question.
Well, I think that we've always had the situation where you can't get a permit for something if you have fines still out there. I mean, you can't ask for, unless everything has been,
You
We're-
can ask for it, you just can't achieve it, right? I mean, you can't.
I know that that situation exists in some communities. I'm not sure if it has been applied here. So I can't speak to that.
I will just say that some of the prior ordinances that have been adopted do have a whereas clause that states, whereas the applicant has no outstanding application type related fees, but I don't think it goes further to include code enforcement issues.
I guess maybe I'm relating that to sales of a property. If you have multiple
sure.
properties and you're trying to sell one that doesn't have any liens or any of that on it, but the others do, you have to correct all of those before
Yes.
you can actually close on this one.
Right.
Okay.
And
Or
again,
you get
the
a
per-
partial release.
No, they don't do that very much.
The permit process and that, I guess, again, I wasn't envisioning all that menagerie in there. I was looking for people that are coming here.
Asking
This is
for
a special
something.
body with special powers and special responsibility, and it takes time, energy, and effort to do what we do, and staff included, I don't think you should be afforded access to that if previously or
Right.
currently you're in a situation where you didn't listen the last time.
So you don't care if somebody's going, they're, everything they're doing is by the book, they're building a house, and they've got $1,000 in parking fines
Yeah.
and whatever, you don't care about that. You care about that
At
same.
this level, I don't care. Obviously, I care for the town.
Sure,
but-
sure,
yeah.
but that's not, that
That's
was
not what
not
I'm
the
asking
purpose.
about.
Your purpose is that same person who needs to, well, I don't know, do parking fines go to magistrate? They do?
They can if
Okay.
they-
They
do,
can.
yeah.
So, so your purpose is only somebody who's asking for a variance, a special exception, a commercial plan development.
A land use
A
approval.
land use approval, that's what you're asking
That's
for.
So you don't care if they owe the town money, you just care if they owe
Oh, the
something
town
on
money and they
that.
want something for the town, from the town. But then there's
Right.
also the timing issue, which I think is a glitch, because getting before the magistrate takes time. So, gosh, I mean, could we include or pending magistrate? I mean, I don't know how you, well, you want it to be after the fact. 'Cause I could see, it's sort of like the glitches I find with the development order process. I find a big glitch here with this.
Absolutely fair point. I don't have a magic answer around that.
Well, neither do I.
The cleanliness I was looking for is that's a third-party arm's length, absolutely enforceable by law or other legislative action. And you shouldn't come and ask for additional freedoms that could potentially go through the same process and end up the same way until you've shown us that that behavior's been cleaned up from your previous variances.
Why do you hesitate on anything that's due the town
Right.
before that?
Because I guess I don't hesitate. I'm be glad, that's why we're having the conversation. What I'm looking for, and I guess this goes a little bit of the conversation we had with the council most previously on that food truck part, where the variance I asked for, I think got a little bit misunderstood, and I wish should have been there to clarify it. But I guess the more simplistic you can make it, the more impactful you can make it, the more arm's length you can make it from it's completely legitimate, enforceable, the less nuances there are and open to interpretation there is that will therefore kill it's a baby bathwater thing for me.
Yep.
Keep it clean, keep it material, and there's only a few of these, but they're big and they matter. They tend to be, in my mind, individuals that have the resources but have chosen the bad behavior versus the other way around.
That's why I would say, yeah, I would go to if you
Full
owe the
length.
town anything.
Yeah.
If you owe the town
Fine,
something,
if you got
now, I
to
mean,
do it.
again, I look at it and say, okay, well, I was, fined unfairly and I don't agree with it, I'm entitled to due process, right, the magistrate, but I just can't move, I'm handcuffed on my property until then,
You
right?
did speed them up to get to the
Right.
magistrate.
Well, if you can get through the process, right? But that would be my only exceptional kind of concern is if someone for some reason had something that was, maybe gonna end up being resolved at magistrate or something that wasn't, fair. But other than that, I would say if you owe one parking ticket, if you owe the town money, you're not,
You're not in compliance.
yeah.
I love you, man.
I mean, you're asking me for something, so
What do you think, Doug?
make sure I'm whole before you.
I think what I'm looking at here sounds too general. It's like it's not meeting the requirements you're talking about, because it's like sort of any and all kind of language.
It's meeting Don's requirements,
right.
not meeting Jim's
Yeah,
requirements.
not meeting Jim's requirements. I think, traffic tickets can be contested, I like the concept that after going through all magistrate, we're talking about, it's been resolved that you owe this money. It's not in, but that takes time, and then that complicates maybe progress, because
But it gets around it, right?
You get around it.
They could
That
come
could take
here
a couple
before the
years or
magistrate.
something.
Yeah, they could delay the magistrate process, come here, get their
Yeah.
variances and
yeah.
still
so-
still owe the town money.
I mean, it
But I
seemed,
like what we're talking about. I think it's just how do you make it work?
The point is there's
Yeah.
always a way to work the system
Right.
Of course.
if you wanna have it open to
Right.
interpretation. So if you
gotta be
include
really
everything,
clear.
then there's then it just holds you to the fire, but the point is, then you make a big effort to get before magistrate, and,
You do.
and
Yeah,
it
you
happens
do.
quicker.
And get it resolved.
Yeah.
And there, I mean, there can be that special exception, but is there a special exception in here that you can come for emergencies or something?
Yeah, it says health and other,
Yeah.
things that are dangerous.
Yeah.
For safety. We
So-
put
so
safety
that
and,
covers it.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
if
to
you're,
me, I think,
well, there was
So
two,
you're in the pile of leave everything in.
well, I mean, you know, I try to follow the rules and, you know,
So that's a
I don't
yes.
feel
Yeah.
like I'm asking
Yeah.
much for everybody else to do.
And what do you think, John?
I'm with Don.
You're with Don, leave it
Yeah.
all in.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, let me just read this. Right now, it says all fees and charges due the town, including but not limited to noticing, advertising, additional professional service, outstanding utility bills, or
Yeah.
code enforcement
And pay your
fines, or
water bill.
liens relating to either the property.
We all gotta do it.
Yep.
So,
I mean,
Pretty much
those
everything.
are not things that you should have to argue about.
No.
You owe a
Yeah.
water bill, pay it.
Right.
The only
You owe a
thing
parking
that
ticket, pay it.
I don't wanna lose is the fact that it has to be across properties. The way I read this, and maybe I'm reading it incorrectly, it seemed like it was limited to the specific property that you're asking for the
Yeah, I would
variance.
like it to carry with the individual.
I think
property
it should be
owner,
to the
whoever
individual.
prop- Now, the bad thing is if my wife and I own a property, and then I own something in an LLC.
Of course.
You know, but I would say if I'm a member on that LLC, then
It's a
same,
cross-property.
same thing applies. You know,
As it should, it
Yeah.
should. Cause everybody will just go out
We
and
know
put it in.
Right.
that, though.
LLCs or
Of course.
something else, right.
You're losing this one.
Oh, no,
It's
not at
good.
all. Are you kidding me? It just got better.
It got better, okay.
I didn't lose a thing.
No,
What
he-
I don't wanna
he
do
did
is
it.
lose it at council
Yeah,
because it's
yeah,
too,
because it's too
Right,
much.
broad.
yeah, and that
So,
would be, that'd
well,
be
hopefully what they're gonna
unfortunate.
see is that by including everything, it simplifies it. And doesn't leave any
Right.
holes open
Or
for
any
somebody
gray,
to come
right.
through. Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, all right, so we are of the opinion that this should be like it is.
correct, but I did hear that it should apply only to the individual property. Is that correct? For instance, if you had a code
That is
enforcement.
That was
correct.
not my,
That's a-
No,
No.
okay,
No.
so you're gonna keep it broad.
Yeah,
person.
keep it broad, the
Okay.
person, the individual. If the individual is, you know, named in an LLC as a member, named, you know, as the property owner, frankly, I think if it's, you know, my trust, I
Yeah,
don't think I should be allowed if I owe something.
So I will comment as well that there currently is in existence a process and procedure for the collection of outstanding fines related to code enforcement as well as liens. So there is a separate process already in place for that.
process doesn't inhibit
Exactly.
Right.
additional applications and requests
It
to
does
do more of the
not.
same.
But if the goal, if the policy concern is to get those liens fixed, satisfied, bringing those properties into compliance and then having the liens satisfied, there may already be a process in
Not
place.
trying to duplicate or be the redundancy department.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to make sure that there's a consequence for you not doing that by additional things that you personally wanna do and will benefit from.
Well
It's
said.
two separate things, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. You need any other discussion on that?
No, I think we
clear.
can summarize where the
Great.
LPA stands on this one, and as I mentioned, we'll take it to the LPA meeting, or no, this
Council
is the
meeting?
LPA. The M&P meeting, Management and Planning discussion, which will occur this Thursday.
Okay, thank you. LPA items and reports. Jane, anything?
I just wanna say that the shrimp parade was absolutely fabulous, and I thought there was more people than I really expected to see there, and the parade was longer than I thought it would be, and I thought that was great. I will say that what I think was missing was the next generation, and the next generation wasn't there. It was, you know, it was older people.
So you knew everybody.
Well, yeah, well, it was the very first time I've gone to a parade without kids and grandkids, and it was a very, and I noticed lots of other parents and grandparents in the same position, and we even talked about it. Isn't it weird that we're here and our kids and grandkids aren't here? Yeah, you know, it hurt to not have that, because my kids always got together with their class after the shrimp parade every year at the 7-Eleven, and then they'd go take a picture at the school. So I'm missing that element of what the town had.
Community-wide, we're missing that element.
Yes.
Yeah. John, anything?
Well, the Beach Kids Elementary, they
I did see them, and
Yeah.
we clapped the whole way
Yeah,
they walked by.
They were well represented. by the parents as well.
Yes, we
So,
were cheering them on.
I don't know if this is the appropriate place, but I'd like to have a discussion about the proliferation of parking lots on undeveloped lots. There's one that the town got at the end of Delmar that, they put up one of those captured or, QR code things for parking, put some stripes in, obviously had not come before any of the bodies to ask for permission.
They own that property?
End of
I don't know
Delmar.
the details, Jim, I just know that the sign was up and that the town has noticed them for violation.
End of Delmar, you mean the bayfront or
The old Shamrock,
oh, interesting, interesting.
Oh, yeah, they can't just do that.
they can't just do that, and I guess it leads me to a thought, potentially a concern,
Yeah, but they might capture that.
when we start looking at a lot of lots that are vacant and are not currently zoned for parking, that it's the minimal amount of development that could be done, and yet I'm not, I don't know that that's providing any benefit to the residents, and if anything, it's just increasing the amount of traffic that we would have
Yeah.
from day trippers,
And
so.
how can they encumber that lot with town parking?
They can't because they have to have a temporary permit, a temporary lot. They have to apply for that.
Is this like a code enforcement issue?
Well, and they
Of the
they
town.
caught this one, right? I mean, the town has violated them, so.
Good.
Okay. So I don't know how we have a discussion on that. That's, maybe this is just it. That
Well, I have noticed-
we're raising this as a concern.
I have noticed that there has been some, blockades that have been put up on areas that were becoming public parking areas. That had, paved area like where the Red Coconut was.
The
They've,
parking the public was
yeah,
doing.
Yeah.
doing,
Yeah.
yes,
Not
and they
public
put up
parking, yeah.
barricades that maybe the the landowners need to block that off with either just, rope or whatever to keep that from,
So perhaps what the LPA might want to consider is a discussion of existing code related to parking lots.
Yeah, let's review that.
yeah,
Okay, good. Jane, anything?
nope, I did.
Doug?
No, ma'am.
Don?
No, thank you.
Jim?
One quick item, maybe it's for information, maybe we talk more about it later. But it has to do with water transportation and all those conversations that are obviously going on around the ferries and all of that, which may or may not happen in the future. My question is, where are there places on Fort Myers Beach, particularly Bayside, where if I want to take 5, 8, 10 family members on my boat and drop them off for their time at Times Square, where can I legally do that, where I'm more than welcome versus having to suggest someone stop and buy a drink real quick and I'll park my boat and then come back and get my boat and get out of here? It would seem like to have that private opportunity where there could be 3 or 4 places where you could do that and it'd be welcome, it'd be properly sanctioned, and it'd be owner's risk happens to be. It takes all those vehicles off the road trying to get to the north end. I wouldn't even come down there unless I could do something like this for a lot of reasons. So some of the applicants were talking about some of their developments. I've suggested that to them and they've agreed. Of course, they're in the approval stage right now that would be a good idea. But if there's something around that we could put out or inquire or the town could supplement, support, or advocate for, just while we're going from here to there to actual formal water taxis, it would be a wonderful idea for those private boaters to have a place to go and do that so they could ferry their own passengers to that place.
Would be a nice public benefit.
Incredible.
You know, Jane, we have talked about this. This has come up before. Of course it has.
Yeah, of course.
And I mean, early on, remember Rusty was going to do. This has come up, and I think that well, who knows where it is now, but there was a map that identified locations. Some neighborhoods said, "Oh no, not here, not here." Like, oh no, not at the movie theater, down your canal. Oh no,
Yeah, I'm looking for, I would hope that some of our current practitioners that have the space, because it's not
Yes.
fully utilized,
It's
could just
yes.
designate one dock
Yep.
in a more formal environment where we
Yeah.
could do that. And it's a drop off. It's not a park and go do. You drop off and you leave and come back and
Yeah.
however that goes. It's just an interest, I think, and it would be timing, I think is pretty good for something like that.
I agree.
That would
Okay.
be good.
So I want to bring up some, and since we've got a little bit of time here, I want to bring up something that I think is, you know, we all talk about, I listen to the council meetings, the new Fort Myers Beach, you know, Fort Myers Beach, build it back better and all this stuff. But nobody knows what that's gonna look like. And you know, years ago, I had this little sign, and I still have this little sign that says, make your vision visual. You've gotta show people what you're gonna do. And I'm wondering, Sarah, if there is a way to change or to add to the submittal requests of, our next big project that'll come forward will be the arches. I have not seen any of that yet, of this latest request. But would there be a mountable, hangable, presentable image of what that development would look like once it was complete? Because, you know, this was one of my big things with the Seagate proposal. We never really saw what that was going to look like. We saw glimmers, but didn't actually see it. Renderings, yes. And I think that as the new town hall goes in place, it would be a huge opportunity to be able to show the public, here are the things that are happening in your community. What? This is what the Neptune looks like? Well, this is Myerside? Well, the things that we have approved already, I mean, I think that we could, I'm meeting with the neighborhood group tomorrow, and I'm going to request that from them, that their projects that have already been approved, could you give the town some images that could be displayed publicly so that people can start to accommodate in their brains what Fort Myers Beach is gonna look like?
Yeah, like the roundabout in Times Square,
which
people would like to see how
they'd
that's
like to
gonna be
know
finished.
how that's even
What is
gonna
that gonna
work.
look like?
So you're smiling because,
Nobody can figure it out.
Would they ever?
Why do they have a crosswalk in the middle of it?
Right.
You know, what the heck?
Because I was thinking about, when I went to Iceland, in their city hall in Reykjavik, they have a scaled map of Iceland, and in the middle of it. So at least they did a number of years ago. So you can see the mountains, you can see what the
well,
country
you know,
looks
at the
like.
rest areas on Alligator Alley, they have beautiful maps
Right.
in those. Now, wouldn't that be a
Yes.
beautiful thing to have of Fort Myers Beach?
So if somebody had the right 3D printing software, you could do an entire, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
you could figure out what scale it needed to be at, and the new city hall could have a giant map of the town.
That
And
would
when
be
you come in for a
so
development,
remarkable.
you could bring in your, you know, I don't know what
Bring
the
in your
cost
But
of
a
this.
university
Bring in,
class could do
yeah,
this for
bring
us.
in your little model and
They've
set
got
it there, and
And what
everybody
it
can
is,
see what it
you
looks
Then you
like.
could see it.
And,
Now-
and I'm sure developers are losing their minds right now, listening to this meeting, saying this is gonna be so expensive, there's no way.
Florida Gulf
Um,
Coast.
Well,
That's right.
But also I don't know how difficult it is to do the 3D printing. I mean, from what I hear, the 3D printing is pretty straightforward if we
is.
figure out
Easy
the
equipment.
scale.
Yeah.
So, you know, somebody out there in
I think
TV
it
land
is
is listening. then-
extraordinarily important for people to, you know, right now, what I hear on an almost daily basis is, I don't remember what was there. What's going there?
Right.
I don't think people have any idea, by and large, what Fort Myers Beach will look like 5, 10, or 20 years from now. And as these pieces are filled in, and I'm not saying, you know, the variances we approved today, not individual homes, I don't think that that's as important as these major developments that we're approving, how they will change the landscape of the boulevard. People need to see it. They need to know what it is.
Well,
And hiding that, it does nothing but push down the road the shock that will come at some point when people go, oh my God, that's what 17 stories looks like? Because they still don't know,
No.
you
Or
know?
that's what 3 stories.
Or that's
on-
what 3 stories
on the sidewalk looks like.
absolutely, that's what 3 stories looks like. It doesn't even have to be tall. So and I'm not saying that I'm not saying this because I want to block that in any way. I just want people to see it. I want them to be able to wrap their heads around it, because even telling somebody, I mean, look, I loved the Neptune project, but when I tell people about it, they cannot picture what it is.
And the graphics graphics don't really do it justice because you don't see it in its setting. I mean, oftentimes you'll get a graphic for
scale
something,
issues, yeah.
and there's a mountain in the background, and you're like, well,
Right.
this is not located on Fort
Or
Myers
some of the
Beach. You-
foliage and trees,
Yeah.
they put a lot of it around it.
Like,
and it
you have a
doesn't appear,
mature
you
oak
know.
tree right
Trees
next to
really
your
tall and
building.
they're
That's
very
not
big.
there.
So is it possible to change, to talk about that in scope of, look, this isn't just an idea of something that we'd like, it's gonna be required?
I think we would have to figure out what the cost, what that would be to the town. I mean, I've worked in other communities
Well, not for the town,
up in
for
Virginia. Well,
the applicant.
Yeah, but because there have been complaints and concerns about the cost of the process. I mean, that's why we have development agreements, because apparently the cost of the process was too much when it was a CPD, but it's less when it's a development agreement.
So would
you
you
know, we could
consider
argue either way.
that a public benefit
That's what I
versus
was getting ready to
requirement,
say.
Anita? If they came in and offered to put that up and have that scale done?
Well, I definitely think it's a public benefit, but I think it should be a requirement.
Okay.
I mean, as somebody who is advocating for the people who live here and work here and own businesses here, I want to know what it's going to be. And I'm a good visualizer, so, you know, I'm not the person that
We might be able to
I'm
see it,
talking
someone
about.
else
Right.
can't.
But
So-
most of the people I talk to have no clue, and I'll give you a real life example. The London Bay development at Bay Beach. We approved that 100 years ago. When it started to get built, everybody said, oh my God, that building is so tall, who approved that? Well, the town did, we did, we approved it, and, you know, whatever.
It's the same height as the rest of them around there. too.
It
Right,
is,
right,
but
right.
it's
This looks
new
big
and,
going up.
But there wasn't
exactly.
anything there
That's
before.
There wasn't
and it's
anything
like,
there before,
wow.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And now there's a whole lot of, there isn't
There is a
anything
lot.
there.
Yeah,
But
or what was there before was 2 or 3
So
stories.
Anita, you're talking about going beyond graphics
Yeah.
to like models.
3D.
Like a model, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But wouldn't you need to have all of the existing buildings also modeled in order to put it in context?
Well, I'm hoping that companies like the Neighborhood Group and others that are coming before us would be good, you know, stewards of the community and do that. Because I
I
think
You
that they
could,
it's
um,
it's in their
Goes
best
in there.
interest
I
to
think
do
that
it.
it also could be a public benefit that someone comes to the town and says, I wanna do something at, you know, some point in the boulevard, and I'll take a half a mile of the beach and have it 3D.
That's a public
printed.
benefit.
That is a
That's a
public
public
benefit,
benefit. Absolutely.
The other,
Yes,
the other challenge,
Conceivably, you could, you know, fly, with drones, fly LiDAR, get all the topography, buildings and everything
Sure.
as data, and then that could be converted to,
that's
Well, see, now
available.
you
3D
technical
model.
people are thinking way beyond what I was thinking of a nice picture on the wall like we did when we did the comp plan. We had all the maps up so people could literally see the
Right.
island all the time. You could not walk into town hall without looking at the whole island, not just your neighborhood, but the whole island.
And we don't have a map in.
And we don't have any maps in here, so you don't look at it comprehensively. And I think we need to start looking at that
I
picture.
think the other challenge, just to be aware, maybe be reminded, many of these folks have indicated these buildings are not designed yet. And until they're designed, I can't tell you what's something gonna sit, 'cause we don't know how everything's gonna do all that. I think the stage that they come in here while it's conceptual and they have plans, these buildings are not designed. So that may be a condition, but it would be subsequent to the approval, because it could be months if years down before they're finished designing them, and then we'll put it up. And by that point, the impact you're talking about would happen, but the ability to influence would not be anymore.
I mean,
well, they're not designed, but they give us a
They do.
concept.
You could
A
3D
rendering.
print that concept.
And
You
so,
could three-
at
yes,
least
you
it could be the
Fair point.
concept to
And
look
it's
at.
it's a box, and it's this tall, or it's a box and it's this tall.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's, you know, you see this little road here, and then you see this,
Mm-hmm.
and then you see this.
I
And
think
you
the
get-
residents
you
have
get
brought their
that
own,
reference.
they're so desirous of it. Remember the boxes?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think, I really think that it's essential that we have it. And, so if you can think about a way for us to, require it, that would be great. If we can't require it, then hopefully, like you said, people will be crazy hearing us talk about this right now, and I'm sure I'll hear about it tomorrow. I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah.
But all due respect, Anita, we can ask for all the models we want,
Yeah.
but if our council continues to approve things without those models,
Yeah.
it won't matter, right? Cause the
Yeah.
developer says, why do I need to do it? I'm gonna get it anyway. I don't care, if, you know.
Any more on that topic, Don?
Just saying, I mean, it's a
understand.
fact.
Yeah,
It is
yeah,
it is
yeah,
a known fact.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah. That's rather defeating, isn't it?
It is.
All right, LPA attorney and items and reports.
No
Anything,
items.
Nancy? Thank you. Sarah, anything from you?
Yes, so two things. We will likely need a second meeting in April. We don't know exactly what's going to go on the meetings, but we have a lot of cases, and we think it would be wise to ask for an additional meeting.
Okay,
At this time, you have one meeting on the, 8th.
Yeah.
So I asked Amy to give me a list of dates that would be available. So Thursday, April 17th.
is everybody available Thursday, April 17th?
I am.
I can be.
Okay. Or would Tuesday, April 22nd be better?
That would be better for me.
Better.
Fine.
Better. You're okay either way?
Good.
Yeah.
LPA is such a
Thursday.
priority for me, it's not a problem.
Either way.
Okay, let's go with
Rules my
Tuesday,
life.
April
Yeah.
22nd then.
Okay,
Okay?
Actually, I prefer Thursday.
Me too.
you both prefer Thursday?
The
I can be
22nd's
available.
not that great for me.
Thursday the 17th?
Or Wednesday, April 23rd.
I'm traveling. I'm not
Okay.
sure if it's Wednesday night or Thursday
It's not the
morning.
best for me.
I think it's
No,
Okay.
Thursday
Wednesday's not
morning.
the best.
No.
Tuesday, April 29th.
Yeah. What about the 29th, Doug?
It just eliminates.
I'm
Too
I'm
much
okay on the
time.
29th.
When's our one in May?
The
28th?
13th.
Yeah.
So we still have 2 weeks even if we do the 29th.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
thinking about
It
the
would
deal
be a
flow.
2-week.
Okay.
You okay for the 29th,
I'm
Jim?
fine for the 29th.
Everybody okay for the 29th?
Let's go
Jane?
back to the 22nd, because it gives a little bit more
Yeah, but
freedom to
to who?
for me to travel.
Oh,
Or Wednesday, April 30th.
No,
22nd.
Wednesdays are out for me.
Well, Doug said the 22nd doesn't work, right?
22nd's
Oh,
not,
'cause
Not
that
good.
doesn't
There's
work.
Three
for you.
times you've mentioned the 22nd.
Thursday the
I'm good for
25th
that.
is good.
What about the 17th? It would just be nice to have,
It is the week,
and that's
Easter
that's
weekend.
Thursday before Easter.
It is.
Yeah, that's
Ugh.
right.
That would be very difficult for me.
Okay.
Are you traveling at the end of the month?
I don't know, I haven't booked anything, because I'm trying to figure out something.
Let's go tentatively for the 29th.
The 29th wasn't too
And,
bad.
and
Nancy, does that day work?
it'll work, it's just I prefer the 22nd.
you prefer the 22nd.
Yeah.
Do you prefer the 22nd?
But
But Doug,
Doug can't do it.
I can do it, but I gotta cancel some, or I have to not participate in some things. Do company meetings.
That's just your livelihood, that's not really that big of a
Um,
deal.
Not really important, is it?
Nancy,
They
can you
don't
do the
care.
29th?
I
They don't
can
care
do
if
the
I'm there.
Okay,
29th.
the 29th it is,
Okay,
Okay.
got it,
So what are we saying?
the 29th,
29th.
okay?
29th.
So our meetings in April will be the 8th, the 29th, and in May, it's the 13th.
Okay,
So these are long meetings, we think?
Well, one of
both
them for sure is gonna be long. Isn't the Arches coming forward?
At this point, it looks like the arches will be coming forward. We have several variances. We have one rezoning likely. We have potentially a development agreement. We've got a lot of things happening.
regular schedule.
Okay,
8th.
all right. Okay, anything else, Sarah?
Yes, this weekend is the library grand opening.
Yes, it is.
On Sunday, there are going to be tables at the library, and me and possibly Jason Smalley, and a person from Corradino Group are going to be, hopefully manning a table there. We're still trying to get everything worked out. And this would be a public outreach opportunity for people to come talk to us about the comprehensive plan and the land development code. I've been looking for an opportunity to get a table.
What will they say? I mean,
Um,
what, are you gonna
So-
ask them questions?
So we're gonna give out, a flyer with a survey code on it, so
Uh-huh.
that people can go do a survey online,
Oh,
they don't have to
good.
do it there. We're also gonna have some poster boards with opportunity to put in comments, to, give us an idea of, you know, the things that matter to them and the issues and topics that are important. So it's really an opportunity. It's, you know, several people have been like, is this political? It's not political. This is all about, what do you wanna see in your community? What do you care about? What do you wanna see in your comprehensive plan? So that's the goal, is
I'm gonna be
like,
there if you want me to
What-
help.
What time is that?
I would love you to help. That would be great.
I'll be there.
I'll
It's
be there
from 10 to 2.
10 to 2. 10 to 2,
Yeah,
yeah.
and we are gonna be on the 3rd floor, so anybody who wants to come by and sort of direct traffic, that would be great. This came up and it was a good opportunity. It looks like there will
You
be
know,
plenty
Sarah,
of people
instead of
there.
a flyer, why don't you just do a board with a QR code and people can just scan it?
Well, we're gonna put the QR code in the flyer, but we want people to not feel like rushed to do it or like save it on their
Oh,
phone and then
okay.
feel
Got
like,
it.
so just,
A little bit of privacy too.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly, so they can sit and think and, you
Yeah,
know.
Yeah. All right, great,
Great idea.
great, super.
So, yes, everybody out in TV land, come see us, tell us
That's
what you
right,
think,
it'll
we
be
wanna hear.
important. This Sunday, at
Yes.
the library.
Sunday.
Sunday at the library. Saturday at Santini Plaza for the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Very exciting, you have a
Mhm,
big
very
weekend.
exciting, and you can still register to be in the parade if you want to. And anything else from anyone?
Just, the 8th, will probably be remote.
The 8th you will be remote.
Yeah, cause
Okay.
I have to be in Texas, I have to be in Sugar Land at 2 o'clock that day, so I'll probably go in the night before, do the LPA in the morning,
Okay,
so.
okay.
Sarah, maybe you can send something to, put a press release or something out?
Yes, that
BTR will
is,
carry it right
Yep.
away and it'll get to your mass audience, wherever
I'm
you
gonna
wanna
be
do.
reaching out to Nicole, today, we were trying to get everything straightened out to make sure, and I'm still waiting for word on the table, but I've gotten other people coordinating, so
Good.
Yeah, I'm
hopefully it
sure Ed and his
works.
team would love to handle it and
Good.
Yes.
put it out, so
Yes.
fire away.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from anyone? If not, it is 10:22
Move to
and
adjourn.
we stand adjourned. Thank you all.